Okay, continuing with our summary explanation of Bhagavad-gita, here with chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. There's four sections: parampara, action, then sacrifice, and then transcendental knowledge. So parampara begins with parampara, with a very wonderful explanation, where Krishna explains that Krishna says that he explained this science of yoga to the sun god Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu instructed it to Ikshvaku. So Arjuna then asked, how is it possible that you were instructing the sun god, because he's been around for a long time, billions of years? And Krishna then explains to Arjuna that I explained this many times, and you were with me in all of those times. And he says specifically here, this is a very important point, number 3, text number 3, the very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and therefore you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So again, this is revealed knowledge. It's not, one can not just read this book and understand it, but it's revealed by the Lord from within the heart. And the Lord he understands the mentality, the consciousness of everyone. And so he sees if we have the right attitude, the right submission, and he may reveal it to us. And the critical part here is he says to Arjuna, you are my devotee, therefore you can understand. In the purport, commentary, how do you call it? You call it commentary in your translation? Commentary or purport?
Smisa.
Okay, different.
Purport.
Uh-huh.
The purport.
Okay.
The purpose.
So,
Purport.
it's commentary. Yeah. Explanation.
What is purpose?
Purport?
Purpose.
Oh, purpose. No. Purport.
Purport.
Yeah.
Purport is smisa.
Purpose is svrha.
No, not just
In Russian, they say commentary. That's why I asked. So.
We also call sometimes commentar. Commentar sometimes means. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So in the commentary, Prabhupada remarks that there are many editions of Bhagavad-gita that are written by people who are not devotees, and consequently, they do not explain Bhagavad-gita properly. And Prabhupada makes the point in the introduction to the book that we are doing this Bhagavad-gita because somebody recently asked me to recommend to them a proper edition of Bhagavad-gita. And Prabhupada said, but I could not, because everyone who is giving translation, they are not devotees. So he says, therefore I've undertaken this task of translating Bhagavad-gita. So Prabhupada, as a devotee of Krishna, is therefore, in one aspect, qualified to give proper understanding. So therefore he calls Bhagavad-gita as it is. So that's our qualification. We have to be submissive, we have to devote ourselves to Krishna, and then this will be revealed to us. So then the next several verses, Krishna explains that he comes again and again to establish the principles of religion. Sometimes the principles are lost, and therefore there's a need to reestablish them. Now, he comes himself personally because the parampara means knowledge that's coming from the Lord in disciplic succession. So the disciplic succession must begin with the Lord. And so here he's explaining this in the first section. Then with text number 12, Krishna changes the subject and he begins talking about sacrifice. That men in this world, they desire success in their activities, therefore they worship the demigods. But what is that worship? That worship in the next verse is explained according to the three modes of nature and the work associated with them. There's 4 different kinds of people. And according to those different types of people, they have different methods of approaching the Lord. So there's different Vedic literatures. Some of the Vedic literatures are written for people in Tamagun, some for people in Rajagun, and some for people in Sattvagun. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the cream of those Vedic literature, which are for the Transcendentalists, so it's considered the topmost study of all of the Vedas. So, Krishna's then talking about sacrifice and how sacrifice is performed. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. There's four sections. Parampara, action, then sacrifice, and then transcendental knowledge. Oops. Sorry.
Djelovanje.
Yeah.
To je u biti drugi, jel da? Djelovanje nije.
So I was saying,
action is before sacrifice.
Yeah, I was saying that, and I was going, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. Okay. Action. So this relates again back to the previous verse, previous chapter of Karma Yoga, action or karma. Okay. So here, text number 12, Krishna is talking about men in the world, they desire success from their activities, therefore they worship the demigods. There's different types of people according to the modes of material nature, and these types of people, this is Krishna. This is arrangement by Krishna. There's different people, different stages of spiritual development, and they will have different influence. They're influenced differently by the different gunas. Some influenced more by tamagun, some more by rajagun, some more by sattvagun. So now he's getting more into action, and he says, 14, there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire to the fruits of action. So he's talking about his own work, because he's the leader of all living entities, and therefore he has to give a proper example. But he says, there's nothing that affects me. I'm not, in other words, Krishna does not come to this world as a result of karma like we do. He's not forced to be born here. Therefore, we refer to his coming here as a pastime. He comes for his pleasure, just passing the time. And then, again, referring in 15, text 15, referring back to parampara. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding, and you should perform your duty also, following in their footsteps. So, not that we create our own idea, but we follow those who have gone before us in the parampara. So, now 16, 17, and 18, about action being very difficult to understand. Even the intelligent are bewildered by determining what's action and inaction. So I'll explain that to you. See if you can understand from this explanation. one should know properly what is action, what is forbidden action, and what is inaction. So this is karma, akarma, and vikarma. Did we explain vikarma last time? So, one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. So, inaction and action. We are performing activity with the activity dedicated. The result given to the Supreme Lord is sacrifice. So therefore, there's no karma. Therefore, this is inaction in action. And others who are not doing that, who desire the results of activities themselves, even though they may be sitting doing nothing in action, still there is action. And then he explains it according to the results of activity. One who is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. So I do not want any result for myself. I'm not doing this for some result. I'm doing it because it ought to be done and as an act of sacrifice for the Lord. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertaking. So that's the secret, how to live in this world, how to be in this world and not be captured by the world, by learning how to give the result of our activity to the Supreme Lord. And so Krishna is going on here with several more slokas explaining this, that the work of a man who is unattached to the modes of nature, fully situated in transcendental knowledge, that means acting for Krishna, his work, the results of his work merge into transcendence, no karma. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to obtain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. So the idea is that we are training ourselves how to behave in the spiritual world, to qualify ourselves. Nobody in the spiritual world is acting for their personal pleasure or satisfaction. Everything there is completely dedicated and devoted to Krishna. And so what we're doing is we're learning, we're training how to do that so that we will be qualified to enter into the spiritual world. In the process, we become free from karma and all previous karma. Okay, now with 25, he starts talking about sacrifice. And this goes on from text 25 to 33. And he explains sacrifice here basically according to the Vedas. The Vedas prescribe many different kinds of sacrifice, again, for different kinds of people. Sacrifice, this word, let's talk about this. Because, at least in the English language, I don't know how it's translated for you, sacrifice. Okay, anyway, it means the same thing. Anyway, the idea of sacrifice, the general explanation of sacrifice is I give up something that I have, right? I surrender something. So this is the idea of sacrifice, is that we give something to the Lord. It's performed for the benefit, for the pleasure, for the satisfaction of the Lord.
Yeah. She asked, is it this yagya?
Yeah, yagya, same word. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, because we don't come from Indian culture, practically speaking, in Western society, nobody has any idea what is sacrifice. You know, what's that? Oh yeah, during Lent we sacrifice something, right? we give up some food that we like to eat or something.
It's not famous world in the West world.
Yeah.
Sacrifice.
No.
No. Or it's like
No.
something.
It's a bad word.
Yeah, bad thing.
So nobody, I mean, practically speaking, nobody knows what it is. But in India, where the whole entire culture is centered around this, that's why, this is there. And for those people, it means something very significant. Many, actually, the culture of India is still what's called Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. You know those words? Mm-hmm. So we follow Dharma so that we can get Artha, economic development. With that, we can enjoy, and then after that, liberation. And how do we do Dharma according to Veda? We do sacrifices like this. And so still to this day, if you build a new house before you move in, you have a sacrifice, a fire yajna. Or if you're going to start a business, or you buy a new car, it should get a blessing, right?
Get child.
Get a child, so many things. And they still follow that. And it would be good if Westerners did too, but we have to establish that. So that goes on, all the way up till 33. Then again, next subject, transcendental knowledge, beginning with text 34. And this is a very significant verse from the entire Bhagavad-gita. How do we get transcendental knowledge? Just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. With 434, we get into now the topic of transcendental knowledge, and Krishna begins by explaining that one can acquire transcendental knowledge by approaching a self-realized soul, spiritual master. This particular sloka is extremely important in Bhagavad-gita, and because why? Because there's so many so-called spiritual teachers who, what do they say? Whatever. And so the question is, we ask, do they come in parampara? Is their knowledge coming from the Lord himself? Because if it's not, they may have some nice ideas, but how far can you go? Again, because this is revealed knowledge, Krishna will reveal to a person in parampara. And this is parampara, this verse. You approach somebody who's already in parampara, you inquire from them, and not only that, you must give service to them. This act of giving service to the spiritual master is very important because, first thing, it adjusts the attitude of the disciple to the spiritual master. It puts him in a submissive state so that the knowledge can be transferred. It opens a space, right? I open a space for the knowledge to come in. If I think I know everything, there's no space for more to come. So, rendering service to the spiritual master is a very important part of being able to assimilate or understand spiritual knowledge. And from here to the rest of the chapter, Krishna is speaking about transcendental knowledge and various different aspects of transcendental knowledge. 438 is one of my favorite verses from Bhagavad-gita. It's very poetic. And I'd like to know if it's poetic in your translation. The English version is, in this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is a mature fruit of all mysticism. And the one who has understood this knowledge enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. Is it poetic there also? Yeah? Good. So nice translation then. So, again, in this, in the remainder of the chapter, Krishna is then speaking about different aspects of transcendental knowledge. And the one before that, in 37, that this transcendental knowledge burns to ashes all the reaction, the karmic reaction to material activities or sinful activities. So, everybody is bound in this world by karmic reaction, but by developing, let's say, acquiring transcendental knowledge, one then understands how to act, how not to act. And by that, taking a choice of proper action no longer is creating karma, and in the process also becomes free from karma. And so anyway, Krishna gives different, speaks in different ways, different qualities, results of transcendental knowledge. And he says, get one caveat here, text number 40. Ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the scripture do not attain Krishna consciousness. For the doubting soul, there's happiness neither in this world nor the next. So this is important too. People, they want to follow their own idea of reality, truth. This is a relative world, and that means I can think, I believe whatever I want. So many people will say like that. I don't believe that. I don't believe this. But what's belief? Belief is not important. The question is, what is the truth? Is there a absolute truth that's true for everybody? And when we find that absolute truth, we put aside our belief because our belief is irrelevant. I believe the moon is made out of green cheese. Okay, you can believe that, but probably not. So our beliefs really don't amount to much. And the question is how to find the absolute truth. And one does that, as explained in this chapter, by finding a person in parampara, a spiritual master, how to serve him, render service, inquire from him, and in that way be able to understand the absolute truth. So that's summary of chapter 4. Question?
I have lots of questions, but in the time of your speak, you give me 4 questions.
They give you all answers.
Answers on
Good.
all my questions.
Yes.
All one is discipline in a life is very important in this process.
Mm-hmm. Discipline, this means self-control. So, what is it? At the end of this chapter? Is it the last sloka in this chapter? No. Yeah, the last verse from the last chapter, end of chapter 3. So there, Krishna is explaining, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the mind, senses, and intelligence, one should act with discipline following spiritual knowledge. Okay? One should control the lower self by the higher self. So First, we have to develop intelligence by studying Shastra, and then with the intelligence is higher than the mind is higher than the senses. So you control the lower self with the higher self. So this requires discipline. This discipline is a quality of sattva gun. Okay, persons in rajagun or tamagun, they don't have discipline. They are controlled by the lower self. So this is an important. This is very important for one who actually wants to make progress, not just in spiritual life, but in anything, really. You know, without discipline, what can you do? So, lack of discipline is tamagun. Yes, so discipline is very important.
When the people do the right things, with these right things, he liberates the life of the karma, and these fruits is very and these fruits give the beautiful life. And we can have here also beautiful life.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole idea. The Vedic culture is God conscious culture. Everyone was following spiritual principle, and it was wonderful civilization, both materially and spiritually. At the end of life, no more coming back. So yeah,
In this life and for
in future, forever.
future.
Yeah. So it's not that, you know, again, unfortunately, because Westerners who's have limited understanding of spiritual life based on Judeo-Christian ideas, they have no understanding of spiritual world or even spiritual principles, how to act. Right? They have no factual understanding of what is sin. Just, okay, it's dogma, you know. The church says I don't do this, okay. Well, that's all right.
Why?
It's okay if you're like a child,
Yes.
okay. But, you know, adult, they want
But a
some,
little child,
yeah. Adult wants some understanding.
of course.
So, but they don't have it. So, did you continue reading chapter 3 after class?
I open before I go to the trip for this weekend, chapter 4.
Okay. If you will, if you can, if you read it after class or even before class, it will be helpful. It will, you know, because everything is fresh, and then you will get some more from it, if you can.
That's a complete name. Next time we do it 5.
Yeah. Anyway, you're a good student. I'm happy that you have questions. It's very good. Sign of intelligence.
And one also my thinking, the results of our
Action.
actions persuaded to give to Krishna. The results is not mine. This results is for Krishna.
Speak up.
With the action in
Yeah.
our life is, I think is very important to don't have attach for results.
Yeah.
And results give to Krishna.
Yeah, that's the idea. Bhakti Yoga means we do everything for the pleasure and satisfaction of Krishna without desire of the results for ourselves. So, acting for ourselves, this is material activity. Acting for Krishna, this is spiritual activity. The activity is the same.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
It's only the consciousness that
Yeah.
changes.
Thank you.
How we can know that not for us, for Krishna? How we can know that this we work for Krishna? No. How we can?
What's going on up here?
Namera.
What are you thinking when you do the activity? Now, we can do any activity and we can think, let me do this nicely to please Krishna. Anything. Sweeping the floor. Generally, when you sweep the floor, you're just sweeping the floor. But if you think, let me do this nicely to please Krishna. To remember Krishna, to be conscious of Krishna, Krishna conscious. So this is, we want to train ourselves like this, okay? You're working in the garden, you're doing cement work, you're building something, you're working with the tractor. Let me do this nicely to please Krishna. It's a simple thing, if you can remember, or you can begin your day as part of your sadhana. You can say, my dear Lord, everything I do today, I want to do for your pleasure and satisfaction. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
So make some conscious effort to think about giving the result to Krishna. Prabhupada, he gives the example, just like a woman, she's preparing dinner and she's thinking of pleasing her husband and her children. That they will come home, they will enjoy this nice meal, like that. So the same thing, when we cook, and instead of thinking it's for your satisfaction, she should be thinking it's.
But you must through devotees, not.
Yeah. If Krishna likes it, you surely will like it. If Krishna, Gornitai, if they like the offering, you will like it.
Yeah. I must.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Right.
Right.